The whole world watched as Camilla Parker Bowles took Diana's husband. Years later, they watched as she took her title, becoming the highest-ranking woman in the British royal family. But behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, the royal public relations machine was terrified of something much smaller, yet far more dangerous. They were terrified of the jewelry box. The courtiers knew that the British public had a long memory. They knew that if Camilla dared to wear a single diamond, a single pearl, or a single sapphire that had been made famous by the people's princess, the backlash would be ruthless. To the public, Diana's jewels were sacred relics. To put them on the woman who had caused her so much pain would not just be a faux pas, it would be viewed as the ultimate insult. For years, Camilla's image makers enacted a strict policy of visual isolation. They locked away the famous tiaras. They hid the iconic chokers. They tried to build a firewall between the new wife and the ghost of the old one. But royal protocol is a stubborn thing, and eventually, the firewall cracked. Camilla did the unthinkable. She reached into the vault and pinned the jewels of her rival directly over her heart. Welcome to the silent, sparkling war of the House of Windsor. Today, we are going to look at the pieces that Camilla dared to take from Diana's shadow. We will examine the jewels she altered to erase Diana's memory, the pieces she wore as a quiet victory lap, and the legendary crowns the palace strictly forbade her from ever touching. This is not a story about diamonds. It is a story about territory. In the rigid, highly codified world of the British monarchy, you do not simply wear a piece of jewelry because it matches your dress. You wear it to establish your rank. You wear it to prove who you are. When Camilla married Prince Charles in 2005, she technically became the Princess of Wales. Out of respect, or perhaps out of sheer self-preservation, she chose not to use the title publicly, styling herself instead as the Duchess of Cornwall. But a title is just a word. The jewelry of the Prince of Wales is tangible history, and Camilla was determined to claim her rightful place in that history, even if it meant crossing paths with the ghost of Diana. The collision happened over a single, highly symbolic piece of jewelry, the Prince of Wales' feathers brooch. To understand the insult, we must first understand what Diana did to this jewel. The piece features the heraldic badge of the heir apparent, 3 diamond ostrich feathers emerging from a golden coronet with an emerald drop suspended beneath it. It was originally a wedding gift to Princess Alexandra in 1863. When Diana joined the family in 1981, the Queen Mother presented her with this historic badge of office. But Diana, ever the modernizer, hated traditional brooches. She thought they looked stiff, old-fashioned, and matronly. So she refused to pin it to her lapel. Instead, Diana engaged in an act of brilliant fashion rebellion. She attached the heavy diamond and emerald feathers to a thick platinum chain. She transformed a conservative Victorian badge of office into a sexy, swinging pendant necklace. She wore it to the Royal Opera House. She wore it on international tours. The emerald drop rested beautifully against her bare skin, often paired with daring, strapless gowns. Diana had taken a dusty symbol of the establishment and injected it with 1980s glamour. She made it hers. To the public, it was no longer the Prince of Wales feathers. It was Diana's emerald necklace. After Diana's tragic death in 1997, the piece returned to the crown. It lay in the dark for nearly a decade. Then came 2006. It was the premiere of the film The History Boys in London. Camilla, now firmly established as the wife of the future king, stepped out of her car. The flashbulbs erupted, and the fashion press froze. Pinned to the lapel of Camilla's conservative, dark velvet evening coat was the Prince of Wales feathers. But the platinum chain was gone. Camilla had systematically undone Diana's creative modification. She stripped the jewel of its swinging, modern chain and returned it to its original Victorian function. She wore it exactly as the old guard intended, as a stiff, formal brooch, pinned high and tight on the chest. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. Tabloids ran side-by-side photos of the two women. The visual contrast was brutal. Where Diana had looked radiant and free, Camilla looked rigid and triumphant. To the public, this was not just a woman wearing a family heirloom. This was an act of erasure. By dismantling Diana's necklace and turning it back into a brooch, Camilla was symbolically stripping away Diana's modernizing influence. It was a visual victory lap. She was saying, "I am the wife of the Prince of Wales now, and I will wear the badge of office my way." It was a territorial marking rendered in diamonds and emeralds. But the feathers brooch was not the only time Camilla stepped on a landmine of public memory. The second collision involved a piece of military heritage: the Welsh Guards' leek brooch. The leek is the national emblem of Wales. The Welsh Guards presented a diamond replica of this emblem to Queen Elizabeth II in 1960. But it was Diana who made it famous. As the Princess of Wales, Diana was deeply connected to the Welsh regiments. She wore the diamond leek brooch frequently, often pairing it with bold red and white outfits that echoed the Welsh flag. The brooch became a symbol of her duty, her warmth, and her connection to the military families. When Diana died, the brooch returned to the vaults. Decades later, Camilla took over the ceremonial role of Colonel of the Welsh Guards, and with the role came the jewelry. When Camilla stepped out wearing the exact same diamond leek brooch that Diana had worn with such vibrant energy, the ghosts awoke again. Every time Camilla pinned that diamond vegetable to her coat, the public saw a phantom image of a young, smiling Diana standing in the exact same spot, wearing the exact same diamonds. These were the moments when the palace realized that sharing jewelry was a dangerous game. They realized that Diana had left an indelible fingerprint on the royal collection. The public outcry over the feathers brooch and the leek brooch taught the courtiers a terrifying lesson. Camilla could not win a side-by-side comparison. If she wore Diana's jewels, she would be cast as the wicked stepmother stealing from the beloved princess. And so, a new, ruthless strategy was born. If Camilla was to survive, she needed to be walled off from Diana's legacy completely. She needed her own armor. And to build that armor, the Queen opened a completely different vault. Next, we look at the crown that Camilla had the legal right to wear, but was strictly forbidden from ever touching. If a brooch could trigger a tabloid war, imagine what a crown could do. In the aftermath of the Prince of Wales feathers scandal, the palace public relations machine went into lockdown. They realized that Diana's shadow was not fading, it was calcifying. Every jewel she had worn regularly was now essentially a holy relic. To place one of those relics on Camilla Parker Bowles was to invite a public execution. And nowhere was this danger more acute than with the most famous diadem in the world: the Cambridge Lover's Knot Tiara. This towering structure of 19 diamond arches and suspended Baroque pearls is synonymous with the late Princess of Wales. Diana complained that it was agonizingly heavy, that the swinging pearls induced blinding headaches. Yet she wore it relentlessly. It became the defining image of her royal life, a glittering, painful halo. When Diana divorced Prince Charles in 1996, the Lover's Knot was returned to the Queen's vault. It was Crown property. 9 years later, in 2005, Charles married Camilla. Legally and constitutionally, Camilla was now the second highest-ranking woman in the United Kingdom. She was the wife of the heir apparent. The Lover's Knot tiara, historically worn by the future Queen Consort, was rightfully hers to borrow. She had the title, She had the access, but she never touched it. Not once. For over a decade, Camilla attended dozens of state banquets, diplomatic receptions, and royal tours. She had her pick of the vault. Yet the lover's knot remained locked in the dark. Why? Because the palace PR team understood that the lover's knot was practically radioactive. Imagine the photograph. Camilla, the woman blamed for destroying the fairy tale marriage, arriving at Buckingham Palace wearing the exact crown that sat upon Diana's head. The visual would have been catastrophic. It would have looked like the ultimate act of theft. The tabloids would have run side-by-side images comparing the radiant, youthful Diana to the older, controversial Camilla. It was a PR suicide mission. The courtiers knew that Camilla could not survive the comparison. The tiara was too loud, too iconic, and too drenched in the tragedy of the 1990s. So, a silent ban was enacted. The lover's knot was effectively placed in quarantine. Camilla was walled off from the very crown that her position dictated she should wear. It was the ultimate invisible punishment, a queen in waiting who was terrified of her own jewelry box. The tiara lay dormant until 2015. The palace bypassed Camilla entirely, jumping a generation to loan the lover's knot to Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge. It was a safe, celebratory handover to a beloved daughter-in-law, ensuring Camilla would never have to bear the burden of that specific ghost. But avoiding Diana's tiara was only half the battle. The real crisis came not at a state banquet, but during the most intimate moment of Camilla's royal life, her engagement to Prince Charles. How do you propose to a woman when the symbol of your first marriage, a massive 12-carat blue sapphire, is the most famous engagement ring on the planet? You cannot give her a sapphire. The stone itself is contaminated. Next, we look at the Battle of the Rings and how Charles had to completely reinvent his bride's jewelry to escape the ghost of his past. In the theatre of royal symbolism, nothing speaks louder than an engagement ring. It is the ultimate declaration. It says to the world, "This is the woman I choose. This is the future of the monarchy." But in 2005, when Prince Charles finally decided to marry Camilla Parker Bowles, he was trapped by the ghost of a 12-carat blue stone. This was the crisis of the sapphire engagement ring. When Charles proposed to Lady Diana Spencer in 1981, he gave her a massive Ceylon sapphire surrounded by 14 solitaire diamonds. It was a ring she picked herself from the Garrard catalogue. Diana loved it. She made sapphires her signature stone. She wore the Saudi Sapphire Suite, a wedding gift of staggering size. She transformed a massive sapphire brooch into the infamous Revenge Choker, wearing it the night Charles confessed his adultery on national television. By the time she died in 1997, the deep velvet blue of a sapphire was inextricably linked to Diana's image. It was the colour of her youth, the colour of her eyes, and eventually the colour of her tragedy. So, how do you propose to the other woman? The woman the public blamed for the tears? You absolutely, categorically cannot give her a sapphire. The palace PR machine knew that if Charles placed a blue stone on Camilla's finger, the backlash would be apocalyptic. The headlines would scream, "He is replacing her." The visual comparison would be brutal. The public would see Camilla not as a new bride, but as an imposter trying to steal the magic of the people's princess. The sapphire was contaminated. It was radioactively Diana. So, Charles had to pivot. He had to find a ring that was the complete antithesis of Diana's. It had to be grand, historic, and utterly devoid of colour. He turned to the one woman whose legacy was universally beloved and unimpeachable. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. In 2005, Charles proposed to Camilla with a stunning Art Deco diamond ring. It is a masterpiece of 1920s design. It features a massive, square-cut central diamond, estimated at 5 carats, flanked by 3 diamond baguettes on each side, set in platinum. It is completely different from Diana's ring. Where Diana's was round, blue, and relatively modern, Camilla's is square, clear, and distinctly antique. Where Diana's was bought from a catalogue, Camilla's is a family heirloom with impeccable royal provenance. The Queen Mother, a woman of formidable power and unwavering popularity, wore this ring often in the 1920s. By giving it to Camilla, Charles was performing a brilliant act of PR judo. He was wrapping Camilla in the protective, beloved aura of the Queen Mother. He was saying to the public, "This is not a replacement for Diana. This is a continuation of my grandmother's legacy." It worked. The ring was praised for its elegance and history. The tabloids focused on the Queen Mother connection, avoiding the toxic Diana comparisons. But the Battle of the Sapphires didn't end with the engagement. Camilla knew that she had to build an entirely new jewelry identity. If Diana was the Princess of Sapphires, Camilla had to find her own stones. She couldn't wear the Saudi suite. She couldn't touch the revenge choker. They were locked away in the silent vault, waiting for Prince William's wife. Instead, Camilla became the queen of diamonds and rubies. She embraced the grand, heavy, traditional pieces that Diana would have found stifling. She realized that to survive the ghost, she had to become the opposite of her. And this strategy, becoming the anti-Diana, was fully realized when she reached into the vault for the heaviest, most formidable armor the royal family possessed. Next, we explore how Camilla survived the public scrutiny by wearing the biggest tiaras in the kingdom. If you cannot win a battle on your enemy's terms, you must change the battlefield entirely. By the time Camilla Parker Bowles officially became a working royal in 2005, the palace understood the rules of engagement. They knew that comparing Camilla to Diana was a losing game. Diana was youth, vulnerability, and modern glamour. She wore chokers on her forehead. She wore pearls with revenge dresses. She made royal jewelry look like high fashion. Camilla was none of those things. And if she tried to be, the public would crucify her for it. The strategy, therefore, was brilliant in its simplicity. Camilla must become the anti-Diana. She could not compete in the arena of the 1980s Sloane Ranger. Instead, she had to retreat to the safety of the 1920s matriarch. To survive the onslaught of public scrutiny, Camilla needed armor, and the Queen knew exactly where to find it. She opened the Greville bequest. This was a hoard of staggering, almost aggressive wealth, left to the Queen Mother in 1942 by the society hostess Dame Margaret Greville. It was a collection of massive, heavy, unapologetic diamonds. It was the jewelry of the old establishment, the kind of pieces Diana found suffocating and matronly. For Camilla, they were a lifeline. The centerpiece of this strategy was the Greville honeycomb tiara. Created by Boucheron in 1921, this is not a delicate fairy tale crown like the lover's knot or the Spencer tiara. It is a solid wall of diamond honeycombs, standing tall and wide on the head. The Queen Mother had even added more diamonds to the top in 1953 to make it more imposing. It is a tiara that demands respect, not adoration. It says, "I am here, and I am not moving." When Camilla began wearing the honeycomb tiara to state banquets, the transformation was immediate. She didn't look like a princess. She looked like a dowager. And that was exactly the point. The public, who would have torn her apart for wearing Diana's delicate swinging pearls, accepted her in the heavy, solid diamonds of the Queen Mother. The honeycomb tiara became Camilla's signature, completely separating her visual identity from her predecessor. But the tiara was only the beginning of the Greville shield. To complete the transformation, Camilla needed a necklace that matched the sheer volume of the crown. She needed the Greville festoon necklace. This is one of the most monumental pieces in the entire royal collection. Made by Cartier, it is a cascading bib of diamonds that can be worn in up to 5 rows, completely covering the décolletage. It is a blinding waterfall of light that announces the wearer's arrival before she even enters the room. The Queen Mother famously wore all 5 rows during her widowhood, using the diamonds to project power and stability. Queen Elizabeth II, who preferred lighter, more manageable jewelry, never wore it. But Camilla? Camilla embraced it. She wears the festoon necklace frequently, often pairing the 3-row version with the honeycomb tiara. This combination, the massive tiara and the overwhelming necklace, achieves something remarkable. It creates a physical barrier of diamonds between Camilla and the public. It projects an image of untouchable institutional grandeur. Diana used jewelry to connect with people, to show her emotion. Camilla uses jewelry to protect herself, to establish her rank, and to signal that she is part of the ancient, immovable structure of the monarchy. By adopting the heaviest, most traditional pieces of the Queen Mother's collection, Camilla executed the perfect PR maneuver. She neutralized the ghost of Diana by refusing to play her game. She became the anti-Diana, wrapped in the unassailable diamonds of the past. But the final victory, the moment that truly sealed her triumph over the ghost, was yet to come. It was the moment she claimed the one title and the one crown that Diana had always known would never be hers. Next, we witness the ultimate insult, the stolen coronation. Every great royal drama must have a final act, a moment where the dust settles, the titles are carved into stone, and the victor takes the ultimate prize. For the saga of Diana and Camilla, that moment arrived on a rainy Saturday in May 2023. The occasion was the coronation of King Charles III, and the prize was the title that Diana, in her most famous and heartbreaking interview, had predicted would never be hers. Queen. "I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts," Diana had told Martin Bashir in 1995, "but I don't see myself being queen of this country." She knew, even then, that the establishment would never allow it. She knew that her rebellion, her popularity, and her broken marriage had disqualified her from the ultimate role. But Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman the British public had once branded the most hated woman in the country, the woman blamed for destroying the fairy tale, she had survived. She had played the long game. She had endured the decades of insults, the silent boycotts, and the PR maneuvers. And on that day in May, she didn't just attend the coronation, she was crowned. To understand the magnitude of this victory, we must look at the physical object that was placed upon her head. This was not a borrowed tiara. This was not a diplomatic loan. This was Queen Mary's crown. The choice of this specific crown was a masterstroke of historical maneuvering. It was originally commissioned for Queen Mary's coronation alongside King George V in 1911. It is a towering, imperial masterpiece of silver and gold, encrusted with 2,200 diamonds. By choosing it, Camilla was breaking a modern tradition. Most queen consorts commission a new crown for their coronation. But Camilla chose to recycle an old one, citing sustainability. But sustainability was only half the story. The real reason was much deeper and much more calculated. Queen Mary's crown is inextricably linked to the controversial, cursed Koh-i-Noor diamond. For over a century, this massive 105-carat stone has sat in the front cross of the crowns of queen consorts, including Queen Alexandra and the Queen Mother. But the Koh-i-Noor is claimed by India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. It is a symbol of colonial conquest. To use it in 2023 would have been a diplomatic disaster. So, the palace did something unprecedented. They removed the Koh-i-Noor from Queen Mary's crown entirely. But you cannot crown a queen with an empty setting. The void had to be filled. And what they chose to fill it with was a direct, pointed tribute to the one person whose approval Camilla needed more than anyone else's, Queen Elizabeth II. They replaced the Koh-i-Noor with the Cullinan 3, 4, and 5 diamonds. These are staggering stones, cut from the largest diamond ever found. But more importantly, they were Queen Elizabeth's personal favorites. She affectionately called them Granny's chips. She wore them as brooches for her most significant jubilees. By placing Elizabeth's favorite diamonds front and center in the coronation crown, the message was clear. This was not Diana's triumph. This was Camilla's validation by the late Queen herself. When the Archbishop of Canterbury placed Queen Mary's crown on Camilla's head, the ghost of Diana was finally, permanently, laid to rest. The woman who had started her royal life terrified of wearing a single sapphire, who had to build an anti-Diana shield of heavy Edwardian diamonds just to survive the public glare, was now sitting on the throne. She had taken the husband, she had taken the title, and now she had taken the ultimate symbol of the monarchy. The story of these two women is written in the stones they wore. Diana used jewelry to communicate her pain, her rebellion, and her incandescent glamour. Camilla used jewelry to build a fortress, to project immovable stability, and to weather the storm of public opinion. In the end, the vault did not belong to the most beloved princess. It belonged to the most patient queen. The ultimate insult was not a stolen necklace or a repurposed brooch. It was time itself. Diana's jewels are frozen in the 1980s and 90s, locked in the silent vault, waiting for a future generation. But Camilla's crown? That is the reality of today. The battle is over. The victor has been crowned.